questions and answers. And I know we have a number of folks from YouTube on YouTube watching as well. So I would just say, if you have questions, put it in there and somebody will transmit it across to me. Additionally, for those guys, if you watch on YouTube, we've also put in a number of video links about the classes that we gave to Sadal and folks about how to do this. So all those classes that were the necessary material for doing this work has also been published. So you can click on the description in YouTube and access the rest of the classes. So with that said, go ahead, Sadal. So if you could quickly introduce yourself and talk about what you did, that'd be great.
Okay. Hello everyone. Hello Prasad sir. So my name is Sadal. I am currently working in a UI UX company as an intern actually. I'm also in my final year of my BTech degree, pursuing BTech actually. So the task which was given to me was actually a prototyping task. The thing was like the interaction, different types of interaction that were happening inside of Gmail actually, like a Gmail interaction. I will show you in a minute. So what I have to do actually, like to recreate the whole prototyping thing actually, the whole prototyping interactions on Figma itself. And the whole thing, how I did, like I will go through the whole process, how I back engineered the thing, and how I differentiated and created the components actually. What was my thinking behind creating such components actually. Should I share my screen?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Can you give me permission for? I got it.
You can now.
Okay. Okay. So the task that was given to me is this one actually.
So it's essentially a video of of somebody using Gmail with all the different interactions, and you were asked to duplicate this whole experience with all the interactions.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, so I have to duplicate the whole thing in Figma actually. Like basically, like why we do something like that, basically for the usability testing among users actually, to test out features, like how it worked out. So like at starting, what I did, I just screenshotted all the interaction that were happening inside the whole video actually. From starting, like first at start we had something like the status indicator. There were interaction like changing to one state to another, then this one, like this would change. The same thing for the another thing, like going to this like this interaction was there, like different state. I screenshotted every different state, documented every different states that were happening inside the video actually. So it would be easier for me to track like what I have to design and how the states were looking actually. The next state was like going on to the spam and then showcasing the spam thing, like how the folder, what is inside it, and same thing like the whole flow, the whole iteration that is going inside the video. I just screenshotted every step and put it just beside beside each other, like in a flow. Now after that I started, like the next thing was like the next thing was like to create the color palette actually, to retrieve the colors that were in the Google that was used by the Google in Gmail actually. So for that, like that at that time, like, actually I had a very less time. So what I did, and I didn't had the proper idea like how I should go with the naming scheme. So I'm already using a template actually. That this is a template like I created a long time back for the color palettes, and these are the colors that I decided to choose. The most of the colors have been derived from the Google Gmail itself actually, by picking colors from there. And different colors, I just rename the colors in it and categorize them like however they have been used actually, based on the state or the interaction they were happening. Like suppose like if you see like the icon states, the default icon state and the active icon state, the mail state, read and selected. So and there were many colors like the shade white. The shade white I means like this one, the white color. I always put white color in shades actually, like so it will be easier because I already use in different projects, so it will be easier for me to go and pick colors actually. And others colors I put it in the same colors, and the colors that I wasn't able to categorize, or like I do not wanted to waste any space, I just put it into the more color section. Now the typography, like gone through the whole thing, in the Gmail I opened my Gmail and checked all the typography, like what is the height they are using and everything, the font size and everything. Then I just created the typography style, and also added the rame thing that I came to know, like the the sizing like that is used by developers, so it be easier for handoff actually. And also added the different icons like inside the Google design. Like I found out like they were in some places they're using 24 pixels, whereas in some places there were 20 pixels icon sizes actually. And these icons are, I have retired from the Google. The Google provides a Google plugin with their material icons. I just use the icon package for that. And over here, like I created some component for the icon state, like like for outline and field as well, like so it would be easier for me to just switch between the different two of the things instead of copy and pasting them together when it has been used. So for minor conveniences I do not wanted to always re copy and paste element, and that's why like I just created a component that I thought in future it would be much easier for me, and added some shadows like that might be required in some places. So these were the default shadows that I often use. Like this whole thing is basically like a template that I use for every project that I start, and as I move forward I keep on changing based on the requirements or the things that I see actually. The next thing, now the thing was like start designing the interactive components. The components I start working on the components based on the interaction that I took from the video, the references. So first thing that I started working on was the this indicator actually. The so so what I did, like there were some things like I created component of the this status actually, like the icons. It's not rendering properly I guess. So for the green color icons, the DND invisible and the schedule thing, the year status. Then I created with using this, like I created the components of different things like the pin shape button, and use the I created this component and added all other states. And if you see in the prototyping view, I also some added some interaction actually. Like when you hover, like there was an interaction actually. Like when you hover on this part, the pill shape, they had a hover animation to save time. Like the main objective of mine was like I do not wanted to use excess amount of screens for doing the prototyping, as it normally happens when you are prototyping. Like this, you can see this hover thing actually. So I do not wanted to use too many screens. So I, to limit that, I just use the new Figma like feature, like the interactive components. The next thing, like this was the another thing, like the in drop down, like if you see the in drop down, we had this drop down where we had this things like the app automatic do not disturb these buttons actually, like these tabs. So I created one tab like as the base component, and using the new there recently they launched a new Figma feature where you can nested out the things. Like suppose that if you want to use like this automatic, you can just share this component like via this one, the nested component thing, and you can easily use that inside the main component actually, and it will be much easier. So I reuse this component and and place them together over here, and change the according to the requirements. I change the status and the text, and as well as the check marks if it's not required and everything. Before that, at first I tried and tested actually like if it's working or not. If it's not working, then I tried recreating the whole thing. Then the next was this one actually, that this thing like the 30 minutes 1 hour, this one. And so I created that also as a base component, and this one is also in a hover state. The next to it is a hover state. I added a while hover animation actually on itself, so I do not have to recreate animation for each one of them. So it will automatically, when I hover over any of them, it will give me the hover effect itself over here. Let me show you the demo actually. Okay, so when I hover, there is a subtle change in this one, the hover animation. Then I click, and as you see, the base components, as I created just one base component, I can, and I change the content of it. The hover effect still exists actually. Then I click this one, and same thing with this one. And when I click 30 minutes, it changes into this. So I tried out the whole thing, the thing that interaction I have to create. I tested out the whole thing. Then as I saw it is whole thing is ready. Like I ready, and then I move on to the next thing. And one more thing, like why I decided to do this one actually. This one I decided to do this one. Like I didn't. It wasn't that much necessary to do for me to create this one actually. But one thing I found, like it is, but I did it because like it would make my life easier. Like if I just create a component over here, and if I need to make any changes, if I make any changes over here, it will automatically get reflected on the design itself over design itself over here. So at first, like I created multiple components for this one actually on previous design. I'll get back to that actually in some time. Like I created multiple components. Like so, I need to Prasad asked me to switch that component to create only one base component. So what I did, I just need to, like when I created the one base component, I just need to replace it over here, and I do not have to worry about anything else in any other designs actually. And when I did it over here, it automatically get reflected everywhere actually. Now the next thing, the email components. On email components, there are some in atomic level. Like this one is just a normal component, the two icons that I needed to use actually for this one actually. Like if there were in the video, if you see, like there were the attachments are of two types, like either was sheet or Google Docs. So I just wanted to switch between them easily actually without copy and paste to save that time. So I just created a component and inserted that instance of a component, and also added a hover effect for the attachment. The next thing was the icons inside. Like when you see the video, like this icons had a hover effect when the mouse was hovering, when you hover your mouse over actually on that. So I created that component, and using Figma's new property, I just retried this icon as an external property, and retrieve that to the main component actually. So what I can do with this one, I just needed to drag this one and change the icon to any one of them, and it will automatically work on that. When I hover, this thing would work as well. So it would save a lot of time for me in future. Now this one is something like this. Like when you hover on the star mark and you click, it will automatically turn into yellow, and when you click, it will automatically undo actually. For this too, I can easily create something, like I can merge them together and create one component. I tried that, but I was facing some minor issues actually. And I didn't had much time to work on it. Like in probably in future, I will work on it and merge it into one component itself. And this one is one of the important components, like the checkbox and the hover effect, and the checkbox is completed. This thing has its own interaction actually, based on which the prototype would change. So for that reason, I just created a separate component for it itself actually. So I don't want to, if any problem occurs with anything else, I don't want to get reflected on the main prototype. So like if there are any issues in future, I just need to find out this one, and I can work on it. But if I merge it with this one or any other component, it will create a lot of issues in future actually. Then with this all atomic components, I created the base component with the text attachments and every other things, and and I also added this thing and hidden it actually, hidden it over here. Like if you see, this more option is hidden over here. So now the next thing was for me to create the hover effect. So when I hover on this one, this card, it should create this effect. That when the time would automatically hide and show this icons, and as well as this drag icon. So I created this one and added a prototypic interaction as an interaction as well, like hover interaction. So I just need to change the content of my body, and it will automatically get reflected everywhere. The next thing was like this one is the check read version. It has a subtle color change when you have already read the email and come back. So I created this one as well. And this component is for the selected state, like as you see on the second last interaction, actually there is a like this state. Actually for this one I created a separate component altogether, actually, like because I do not want to have any, like if any issues occurs, like I just have a place where it has occurred. I know where I need to work on, so it would be easier for me in future to, like, if any problem occurs in future, I can easily come back to only this section and fix the problem over it. And all these components that you see, like if I make any changes over here, like suppose like uh suppose if I disable this one, all of them gets reflected over here itself. And same thing happens on all of the other designs as well. The prototype, if you see, check the prototype as well, like this thing happens for the every one of them. Because these components are just I taken this component and created another component of this one. So this base component, I just, if I need to make changes on anything over here, it will get reflected everywhere. And only on this component I'm making some subtle changes over here. The same thing, I tried out everything, like if it's working or not. So this is another playground that I created, actually. Now the next thing, there was an interaction. The site now had an interaction like this one, like the inbox, like when you click on more, like this page, this part was opening, the more options were, we were showing more options. So how I did that, at first I, like if you check the references, I took some screenshot of it, actually, like how the hover state look and how other things were looking, actually. So from this, like references, I created everything, like the host, adding the hover state, created the hover state for every icons. And there were two types of this one, actually, like this thing, the labels, the list items. One had a selected state as well. So and for selected state, I created a different component altogether, because like I had an interaction as well. Like when you click on this one, like it will change into directly change into this one, actually. So that's why I created this interaction altogether. So how it look, I can easily create it or merge them together, but it might create some problems later on the feature. I do not want to, it's like I do not like to compress all the components together so much that if any problem occurs, like it would be missed to fix the whole thing. So that's why I like to separate some elements that might be helpful in future. The next thing I did for the category, the categories part as well, like the hover state, and in some category, like this category is a different thing. Is this one, actually? This category was part of this one, actually, on the more section. And this part, this one, actually, this calendar invites thing is another thing, actually. This is a level. So, but this was the level session. So and for that I just created the component, add a hover effect. And this one, like in the video it was showing that, like if the text was too large or just had a text, when you hover over them, it also shows the what is the data, what is the name of the label, actually. So I created that as well. And this thing is actually nested with this one as well. The text component of this one and this one is similar, actually. That's why, like if we make changes anywhere, it will automatically get reflected over here itself. Like if you want to check it out, and let's say hello, and let's create another one. And now if we test it out, okay, now see, like I do not have to do anything, and the whole data over here is automatically get retrieved from to this one as well. The 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 hover text as well on this part as well. So it saves a lot of time for me as well. Instead of creating a, like if you want to do in a manual process, like I have to create all of the screens where when you hover on this, like it would show this one actually, like in previous times, like when Figma hadn't introduced the like the interactive component feature. So it saves a lot of time there. And one more thing, like it also had a selected state as well. So for that I also added a selected state as well over here. Now, this one has a compose button. It has a subtle hover effect. For that reason, I added as well. And this one, like the icon hover, like when you hover on the plus button, it has this circle thing. This is a repetitive component actually. Like if you see, like this thing, the email component, and this one is the same thing, but created a different another component over here itself, because like just duplicate the component over here as well, because like in future, like in like suppose in 1 week or 2 weeks time, if I come back and I forgot like how things are working and what component to group, like it would be a lot of work to me for me to figure out everything. And suppose somebody new comes in and check the thing, they might get lost like how the thing is happening. So for that reason I just created a duplicate that component and use it over here. So for future convenience it would be much easier for me. So sometimes the repeating components, I repeat components intentionally actually, for future use cases. Now, like this one, same thing with this one as well. Like I repeated the component for this one as well, like hover effect, like icon hover. This is the same component that you saw like two screens behind actually. And these two components are of same type but has a different like hover effect. Like it has a rounded square actually, and this one had a like a overstep, like a vertical overstep, like and had some button actually. So I created three different components for this one and check the whole thing out. And also while creating this component, like over here, one more thing I did was like I added a preferred icon set actually. Like what are the preferred icons set for this specific component actually? Like if you check it over here, like icons, like I added all the 5 icons that are needed for this only this component actually, for mail view components. And over here this component has only plus button. So like if any new person comes in and he is working on the mail view, he can directly copy this component and use the icons that are present on there, the preferred icons are there itself, and create the component actually. It will be much easier for them actually. Now the last thing is the primary tab, the tabs that we have actually, uh, these tabs. Same thing with that, like I created three states of created the tabs with 3 different states. One is the hover state and the one is the active state. I created all of the tabs and added also added the icon preferred icons as well, and just create and take the one instance of the component and created multiple instances and change the data of it for trying out purposes. Now in total, in of all 5, these all components, the total number of components actually is there are like 21 components, out of which 5 are repetitive, which are intentional, some are intentional, and one can be merged that I previously stated, and which can be further reduced to 18 if you want actually. And there in previous time, when I had a talk with like another in previous session, when I had a talk with Prasad actually, he asked me to like the minimize the number of components. So this was the previous iteration actually, like why on the first iteration how I created the actually. So as you see, there are too many components for one specific thing instead of using base component actually. Because at that time, like I was having some issues with the whole thing actually. So and recently Figma launched a new feature like that was out of beta. So for that, or by using that feature, I was able to reduce this number of components to single component actually. Same thing with the button hovers as well. Like if you see like on this component, like on the previous new design, I only have 5 components, whereas on this one in total I have around 9 components. So it saves a lot of time and I do not have a duplicate number of components as well. Now let's see the product. And these are the number of screens that I used altogether for creating, and the most of the interaction just took one screen for me, except for the selected one. Like it took me like around 6 screens and as well. So let's get started. So the first interaction was this one. Just a second.
So, Sadal, while we are waiting, how much time did it take for you to do all of this stuff?
So the first version, the old one, like it took me around 8 hours, and for correcting everything that you asked me, it took me around 1 hour something.
Okay. And now, if you had to do the same task all over again, how much time would it take you? Or a similar task?
Around 5 to 6 hours, the whole thing.
Cool. So if you were given any other website or whatever, reverse engineer it, you'd be able to do it in 5 to 6 hours.
Yeah. Because like this had a lot more complex thing than other website would have much more simpler things as well.
Got it. Cool. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's see side by side actually the whole interaction that is happening inside a video. So the first interaction is this one. Selecting the DND mode. As you see, the DND mode has changed into this one. So let's select this one, and the DND mode has changed. The next interaction is going to the spam folder. Now this is a spam folder as well. It's working. Then inbox. Okay, I missed something.
Yeah, if
Then
Saurabh
it
is
goes.
saying awesome, then that's a big deal.
The next thing is the labels. I gone to the labels. Then again it goes to inbox. Next is updates. Then promotions. And again to primary. Updates, promotions, then primary. And these are the hosted as well, like previously as I shown actually, like these are the hosted that are working. Now the next thing is the selections and deselection. That also works fine. And the last and the least, the most complicated thing out of every one of them is this drag thing. That's all. The whole interaction is over. So anything like you want to ask me or anything that I can help you with, let me know actually.
Cool. So I just want to add a couple of things to this, right? So the way we had taught you was to look at the atoms, then you look at the molecules, then you look at the compounds. So you're going systematically. And one reason why we make you do that is because when you're looking at transitioning to engineering, okay, all the engineering has to do is they just look at the components that you've done. They just have to duplicate those components, just do the code for that. They're just building component by component by component, mixing it. This is exactly how engineering is done. And this is a perfect way for design to coordinate with engineering when you're transitioning your designs to engineering. Right? So that is a really good thing. The other thing that you look at is, on average, if you, I mean, I'd just like to ask a question for everybody out here. If you did not see Saddal's presentation and I gave you the same video and I said, duplicate this and create something like what Saddal has done, how many hours do you think it would have taken for you? Just put a number in there. Punish, Lalit. Yeah, so Saddal, can you do the demo with all the links, the prototype screen with all the links, and just play around with it so people can see it again? So that's a mouse over. Oh, you didn't show the one where you have the secondary actions, where you want to delete or do something like that to the, how do you do that? There you go. And then how do you do multiple select? Can you drag and drop as well? So again, if you notice, of the people that have responded, it's like 20, 24 hours, 48 hours, pretty much everybody has said that. And this is exactly the whole point, right? So if you want to be creative, you want to be a creative designer, okay? You have to know your mechanics really, really well. And so if you're able to, if Saddal is, let's say he has 48 hours to do a task, he's doing all his prototyping in 5 hours, okay? So he literally has the remaining 43 hours left to be creative, right? If you're going to spend 20 hours doing it, then you have only 24 hours to be creative. You don't have a lot of time, right? So the point being is, whatever is mechanics, you need to know it so well. And it's not about, that's the difference between playing international cricket versus gully cricket, right? The international cricketers will optimize the small stuff and be very, very particular about it. Whereas in gully cricket, it doesn't matter how you play. And that's the point. When you're getting in the professional system, you need to be able to do all of this so quickly, and then the handover has to be so smooth with engineering that you're not worried about the mechanics. You're only focused on the creativity of doing design. And that is exactly what you need to do. So, yeah, so let's see. Punish says, can you create a complete interaction for any of the components? Sadal, do you think you can show one how you do an interaction for a component?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Like, give me like which component should I work on it? Just give me the component. I can start working.
The drag component. So Varun says the drag component. So he's curious about that.
The drag component. Okay. So, take it. Select this three. Delete this one. So this is a new thing. Okay. Next thing was turning this one was selected thing. This one. Now this one is checked. This one should be checked. Let's take scroll the report. Okay, select all of them. Like these are frames. I just have this one actually. This is the main thing. Like inside the auto layout, there is an icon and the text actually over here. The move conversation that is shown on the video actually. So like, just duplicate this one, place it over here, remove all the existing prototyping. I guess next.
Yeah, so Punish, that might actually take some time to do from the ground up. And maybe that might be a separate demo session that we can arrange. Um, uh, just because you have to start thinking. But I think, Sadal, the question for you is, where did you take the most amount of time?
Like most amount of time was this one actually, the selected one actually.
No. So you had 8 hours, so you had to complete in 8 hours. So you technically took 9 hours after feedback and all that. So in those 9 hours, where did you spend the most amount of time?
Like after feedback, I just spent around
No,
1 hour.
Before, when you started from the beginning itself, you were given the project. So where did you spend the most amount of 9 hours?
Naming the icons actually, the naming all of the things actually. This naming conversion.
And how long did it take for you to identify the components?
Like around 1 hour. Like when I like thing is with me actually, like whenever I see a something, I easily can identify this is a component, this is a component, because I am also I have an experience as a developer as well. I worked on a developing like web projects actually. So I have like in development is basically start work on the most basic thing and just scale the whole thing.
Right.
So I had the idea, so it much easier for me to identify what is a component, which isn't a component.
Got it. So go ahead and do this interaction. Maybe it's not from the scratch, but go complete this interaction so everybody can see how you're doing this interaction. And then you can then you can take the next question.
Sure.
So what you've done is you've done 2 copies of the same page, correct? And then there's a drag status. So how to drag it to a second location is what you've done. And the location is preset. Is that correct?
Which one?
So when you're dragging from one position to another position, the positions are predefined. Are they hard-coded or can you move to any position?
They are hard-coded actually. Like this, like if I move it over here, like it will start from over here. Like it's not really, I don't have any freedom on that actually.
Got it. And how do you do the drag interaction there?
Like the drag interaction is basically on this, the whole thing is happening on this one. I added a drag interaction on the box itself. Like even if you drag over here, like in the previously it was I started working on this icon itself. So when I visited back the video and as well open the Gmail, I find out that like you can drag anywhere you want, which makes a lot of the things easier. I selected just this one component, add a drag interaction on that, then added a smart animate and then added a 150 millisecond timing actually. Why 150 milliseconds? Like the most of the interaction, I was going beyond 300, the Figma had some glitches actually. It's not working that fine. So that's why I just trial and error method. I came to conclusion that lower the it is, like more you see less issues actually. There will be some errors in Figma itself, like when you are working on it actually. Now when you do that, like next thing was something like this, like after delay, like when you drag on this part, it will go to this screen, then just after delay, and then it's select to this one after delay and not navigate to, it would be open overlay, and the overlay would be like I need to rearrange the overlay as well, like how it should look. Okay. Now overlay is okay with the mail view. It's covering up the mail view. What is time? 150 and manual, everything's manual. 800, not 800, 150, everything's manual. Okay. The next thing is looping them together. And then all of the things are like after delay, and it's swapping overlay actually. And it's smart animate and slow 600 actually. I tried and tested and come up with these numbers actually. I tried everything like interaction that they provide actually, like, but it was not working properly. That's why I came up with these numbers actually by trial and error actually. Swap overlay, smart animate. It would be slow. Is the number 600. 600. Same thing. Just loop them together. After that is done, the next is the exit animation. Exit animation is like after 800 milliseconds, and smart animate is in is out 300. After delay 800 milliseconds, smart animate is in is out 300 milliseconds.
So what is ease in, ease out?
Ease in, ease out is basically something like in ease in, like it's something like it shows like if you see the example over itself, like in ease in, like it is something like this, like it starts like it start fast, then it slows down. Wherein is out is like something like it starts slow, then is fast. And ease in, ease out is something like start fast, then slows, then and slows down as well. I
Got it.
might be incorrect. I don't have that much knowledge in this area. One thing I have know that is like when you coming outside of any frame, try use ease in. When you are going inside a scene, is use ease out. It is the most optimal way of doing things actually. Forward after delay 300. Scan click after delay 300. Let's see if it's working or not. This one. Okay, it's working. Okay, this created an issue. So overlay smart animate. Delay smart animate. Swap drag animation smart. So drag animation. Smart animation. Okay, that's it. Swap overlay. Swap overlay. Okay. Now, if we play it again, drag this one. Okay, this works. And like if you wanted to, like suppose it start from over here, then over here, over here. And as you add more strings, the more smooth it is actually, the whole like the animation thing. But for a specific demo, I guess this is good enough actually. Like as you said this. So this is a drag animation. There is another way of using a drag animation actually, like which is like you will get the best result that you see, like the similar result as you see in the video actually. That is using Anima actually, using custom code. I tried that, but it will, but you can't. But you have to export all of the prototype inside that only actually, using Anima, because Anima when you like play any prototype via Anima, it will play on a different web browser itself. So you need, if you are doing that, like you need to create all of the prototype, do all of the prototyping in Anima itself. So for like to get the like realistic results.
Cool. Thanks, Abdul. So Bhaskar has also added a link in there for the ease in, ease out principles. There's a YouTube video, so if you're interested, you can click on it. It's in the chat. But again, really good job done. One other thing that I would also say is this kind of work is really good if we don't need to play it right now. That's fine. So, I mean, other people can click on it if they want. But the other thing is when you're working in a team of designers, okay, and everybody needs to know how you're working with each other and all that. Once you've created the system, you've created the components, they don't have to do a lot of that basic level work. You're just taking those components and playing with them. So, in the larger picture, if you want to change or edit the screen or whatever, it's just a matter of minutes. And all your pages will be consistent, no matter how many changes you have to do, and you're not wasting a lot of time doing this. So again, that is one of the key things that I would say for a UX designer. The more you save in the mechanics, the more you can apply in the creative components. So in the creative aspect. So that's what it is. So I believe Shiva has a question. Go ahead, Shiva.
Yes, sir. My question is to Citadel. Citadel overall, it's an amazing work, but especially I really like the prototype. My question is have you faced any challenges while creating the prototype? Have you learned any new things to implement that, to overcome that?
Okay, so as I said, thank you. First of all, thank you. The issues that I feel, let me show you the old part. When I was creating this whole interact components actually, and I first thought of use this as a base component actually, to create one component and use it as a base component. It will be much easier. And the issue was when I added this hover interaction, over here created the interactive component, I just thought of replacing the icon and it will do the work. The thing was when the icon would look nice, when you hover on that, it will go back to this the component icon, and the whole thing was messing up a lot actually. So at that time, there I was Prasad asked me is this possible to compress all of the duplicate components to single component, so it would be easier actually. So at that time Figma was in beta. Figma had released a feature in beta actually. What that did actually, you can create component. Suppose, let me show you. This is the component. Just a second. If I take the instances of the component and let's detach both of them and create new components. Create component set. I created the components. Then I just needed to select this one, this icon, and use this to select the similar icon. And I just have to select any icon. Create the basically my job is over here using this feature. You can pick out the component that is inside another component, basically the icon, and you can drag it out to the main component. So it is accessible to the main component, and and that state, if you make any changes via that thing, it stays inside the memory of Figma actually. Let me add another icon for over here. Let's add not this one. Icons 20%.
So all this naming and stuff you've also done, right? So you spent time doing all the naming and everything. So it's very easy for you to find.
Yeah. Okay. Now that is done. Now if let's go to the playground and see. And let me play. Till then, let me bring the old one as well. What was the issue? I can showcase that as well. Okay, the top one is the old one, and over here, let me change the checkbox to something else. Let me check it to this one, and let me change it to checkbox into a tick mark. Now, if I play, this is a hover interaction. If you see, there is a subtle hover, and oh, okay, this is also over. Okay, I create. Did I make a mistake?
So while you are looking into this, Prasad asked, may I know in real-time projects how many designers design this way? And I would say that Pretty much every rockstar designer I know does it this way.
Conflicting.
Now, the question is, out of all the designers that you see, what percentage of people are rockstar designers? Very, very small percentage, right? So that's what it is. The question is not how many people do it, but the question is, should you do it or not? And the answer is yes, you should do it. This is the way you need to approach, because when you do it this way, you're creating an environment to collaborate with other designers. You're creating an environment to hand over seamlessly to engineering where you have no problem whatsoever. And you're creating an environment where your designs are easily updatable and extensible. Okay, while making sure that you have enough time to be creative. So this is, in my book, probably the only way you need to approach it. This is the only way how you need to approach when you're using your tools. Does that answer your question, Prasad? And again, here's the other interesting trick, right? So you don't have to tell everybody that you're going to get this job done in 5 hours, right? You still say it's going to take you 3 days. Okay. You do it in 5 hours, and the rest of the time you think about how you can do it better. You be more creative on the creative aspects.
So previously I picked a wrong component actually. This one had a square like hover actually. That's why it was creating an issue actually, creating a conflict issue. Now let's take both of the refresh thing actually. This one is the new one. Let's change the color also. This one is the new one. Okay, let's rename this one as new. So when I drag, should come as let's first check before anything. Let's check it's working or not. Is okay. I haven't added the whole.
In the meantime, if you have any other questions, please free to type it in or ask, and then we'll try to take them while Saddal is working on this.
Okay. I forgot to add a hover animation actually. Why it's happening? When I add a hover animation, while hover, this one state instant default hover property, and the property is not named properly. Later on might create an issue.
So Kamal has a question, which is, does Figma have all the tools to create the vector graphics you've used in this, or do you use external resources for the graphics? So yeah, go ahead, Sudha.
What do you mean by vector graphics actually? Like,
so I think you got them off the material guidelines, right? So that's where you took them off. Yeah?
Yes, yes.
So he took them from Google. So the Google has published all of these graphics, and he literally took them from Google. Okay. And one thing I would say is, one really good way to practice your tool skills is to literally take a website and duplicate it using this. So you're learning how to look at the components. Tool as in, it's not important to learn Figma. Like, if you go into your resume and say, I know Figma, I know Photoshop, I know XD, nobody cares about it, right? What I care about is, even if you know one tool, do you know how to do it correctly? That is what is really important. So what I would suggest is, just watch the videos that we have link tagged in the YouTube thing, and then go out, take any video, take any, product, right? And reverse engineer it. Try to identify the components, try to do this and see how quickly you can do it. Okay. The faster you can do it, and ideally the ideal speed that we have within our system is anywhere between 4 to 6 hours. That is what we say is the best case scenario for a designer who's competent. Okay. Now try to reverse engineer and see if you can do it in 4 to 6 hours. That is a challenge. And this is the complexity that you should have. Okay. So we have from YouTube, we have one. So I've seen most companies use XT because they get Creative Suite subscription for other tools like Photoshop and AI. But Figma is more popular because it's free. So everybody starts learning that tool initially. So it'll be better if you'll tell us whether to go with Figma or XD. So I think it is in the long term, it's not going to matter. At least, I'm sure the other community members may have an opinion. But my opinion is in the long term, it doesn't matter because Adobe has purchased Figma as well. Figma is also going to go into a similar subscription model. We do see that happening. So it doesn't matter which one you use. I think what is important to be taught right now is that you need to be thinking about how to use the tool, right? So whether you're using Adobe XD or Figma or Photoshop, it doesn't matter what tool you're using. The interactions, the components, the strategy to approach the product is the same, right? Learn this strategy regardless of the tool. And then once whatever tool you get into, you apply the same strategy, you'll work no matter what. All right. I think this is a question for Saddal, which is Krati says, hey, if in case we miss a state for a component while creating, how can we plan for it later?
Like the thing is, like if the naming scheme is correct, like you wouldn't have any issues. Like if I add another variant, I can easily add another variant over here. So like Figma is really helpful in that case. Just the issue with the naming scheme, and one more thing, like I made a huge mistake. Like why is it working? And it's working for all of them actually. So like while creating this component, I mistakenly created a nested component. If you see this component, the mail view component is created in a nested component, then there is another component on top of it. Like now, and one more thing, I've just found out like it's working actually. Like if I just change the icon via directly, like it's working as well. I do not have to use the nested component altogether. It's also working over here. Then probably like when I was working actually on the previous time, like when I had a demo, like previous session, like I tried that a lot of times. It was actually not working, but right now it's working. Probably they gave an update and fixed the issue. I'm not sure.
So the only problem, Saddal, is the interaction you have created. It's a white shade on a white background. So it's very hard to see whether it's working or not. For you, it is very obvious. For us, it is not.
Sure. So if you see, like right now, all of them are working. And previously on the previous session, when I created this, I tried using the old icons actually. Like instead of creating multiple version of this, I created just one icon and tried doing that, but it was not working at that moment. But right now it's working very finely actually. So probably Figma fix that issue, or I was having any issues from my side, or I was doing something wrong actually. I'm not sure, but currently it's working fine.
Actually, I was asking for, say, we have a primary thing like primary and journal marketing. So they have another state that we have some kind of chips there where they have the count, and then they have like from where we have got the comments and everything. So how they have an entirely different design perspective where we have to manage the space and everything. So while creating a component, we have to look after each and everything in detail. So what if that is missed? And that is the highest hierarchy thing, that these are the maximum components or these are the maximum things that need to be included, and we actually missed that thing. So how we can plan it later?
Okay, so the thing is like whenever you create a component, like you will be missing something, and it's 100% sure. Like even after 1 month you will think like this is, we need to add one more thing. Like it will keep on happening, and you will at later time, like you need to keep on updating the design system as well. And you cannot really plan that much in future. Like you don't really know like what would be needed. So what I did, like in my company actually. Like the design system, there wasn't really any design system. I was the lead, like only designer and in that company actually. So that time, when I started designing, like the updated the design, I didn't have much knowledge. I created something and started using. Right now, I see lot of errors in that, and I cannot update that because it's already on the build, and we are already on a high pace working on a different thing. Like we are working on a web app, website, all together three at once. And I am the single designer, and I have another person as a helper. Like he doesn't really familiar with the designs, but due to the design system, he is fairly easy to work with. So like updating the main topic, like the updating that design system sometimes might be very hard to actually updating that design system, and it might create a lot of problems actually in future. Like if you see, like, and in design system, like any components might broke easily. Like components broke very easily actually. Like if you in later you want to add something and you add another feature along with that, like icon state property, another property you add, and whereas it is missing on other previous components that you never planned and never intended, it will create a lot of issues. So what I suggest, like I found that works for me, is to just create another component altogether actually. When you create another component, you find out the what is the requirement, that component specifically requirement. Now check the component for, like, you cannot stop your designing process altogether as well. Like in company would require the UIs like as soon as possible. You cannot halt your design. So that way I say, like, create another component, meantime use that component for the designing that one, like creating deliverables. And beside, just compare the old component and the new component and see, like, if the requirements are matching or not. If both are extremely similar, try a way and create a separate file and try putting them together actually, and try to keep the naming scheme similar actually. When you replace them, it will be easier to replace them. So it will be easier. And updating design system is really hard and complicated actually. Like in many people would say, like, you can keep on updating the design system, it's really hard. Does and in company, in my company especially, if you see, like, the lot of design systems are really outdated actually, because I don't have the time to update that thing. And it's a very delicate thing. If I miss one thing, it will create a lot of errors. And developer doesn't really, they need the framework, how the component works, and they do not need the component is for us, because we do not like to create UIs. Like we want to mostly focus on other steps, like create the flow, this how they are coming in, how they're coming, and how what are, like, the UI is just like something like we want to save time as much as possible and create the similar consistent UI as much as possible. So, like, try to separate the component first. Like if you find the similarities, they are matching and it's perfect, and you can combine them, then combine them, or else just keep them separate for now. And in future, there might be something might come, and you can merge them together.
Good. Thanks, Sadhar. Madhav, you have a question or a comment?
I had a comment, Prasad, but I think Satadal already covered it. Just to additional to the Satadal point for Krati, what we do is we create separate master file for design system. And in case of you, like if you have missed certain state for a component, we create a new component, and on top of it, we write a note as a versioning that this component have been updated in this particular date, so that any other designer, if I'm not part of that product, I have went to another product. If a new designer is coming, it will be more easier for him. So that particular point I wanted to add, that versioning is very important so that it's common for every designer.
I would actually have a slightly different approach on this.
Okay.
My approach is that when you get a new component,
Right.
I would actually see how similar is it first. If it's very similar, I will simply apply existing rules, because engineers will also appreciate that. You say, just do this, only change this icon. Engineers will appreciate that, right? Now, let us say the component is so radically different. Of course, it has to be a separate component. And then at some point, you have to think about how you're going to remerge them or reconnect it back into one system.
Right.
Okay. But your effort should be that, but default effort should be, how can I merge it into an existing system? Right. If not, then I have to create one new one, and then over time, then you have to bring it back into the same system.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is what Satadal said, right? To merge both as in similar. So that was the point. So I lowered my hand. So this
Good, good, awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
Madhav.
Thanks.
All right. So, yeah, if our tool allows the component states in a modular state. Now, again, I think there are two separate conversations, Kamal. One conversation is about design systems. It's the philosophy of the design system itself, right? It's a system, it's a process. Then the second one is the tool itself. So, whatever the tool's limitations or advantages are, that is separate. But when you're maintaining the design system, if you're owning a design system, you're controlling that. Right. So, yeah, your tool, whether it's separate or different, is a different issue. Okay. So, thank you very much, Saddal. If are there any other questions? Because I think we're running over time. If there are any other questions, happy to take them, or we can call it a day. But this has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think Saddal had an advantage over the other teams that were working on this project. And the advantage was he was an engineer. So he kind of understood things from a coding perspective. Right. And so when you do things from a coding perspective, he understood why we're talking atoms, molecules. He got it instinctively. Whereas for designers who have never done coding before, you might actually say, why is Prasad forcing us to do atoms? Why is he forcing us to do molecules? It doesn't make sense unless and until you have to code it. So this is, in my book, this is gold standard work, Saddal. So absolutely fabulous and really good job done.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Right. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.